my daughter-in-law, posted a TikTok saying, "My mother-in-law does nothing." When she came home, she couldn't believe what she saw. I never thought it would end up like this. That at 68 years old, with hands marked by 4 decades of honest work, I would be sitting in the living room of my own house, watching thousands of strangers laugh at me. It was a Thursday afternoon. I remember the cinnamon smell of the coffee I had just brewed, the sound of the birds in the backyard. I had just finished cleaning the entire house, as always, and I sat down for a moment in the armchair in the living room, the one I bought 20 years ago that still holds its original navy blue color, because I treat it as if it were silk. I picked up my cell phone. I'm not one of those older ladies who doesn't know how to use technology. I taught myself, watching tutorials, asking my neighbor Harriet. I got on TikTok because my granddaughter Caroline had shown me how to use it to watch recipes and cat videos, simple things that made me smile. But that day, the algorithm showed me something different. I saw the face of Jenny, my daughter-in-law, smiling at the camera with that smile I had always believed was sincere. She was wearing a pink blouse that I myself had given her for her birthday. The video started with a catchy song in the background and her speaking directly to the screen. "Do you know what the best part of having a mother-in-law is?" she was saying in a sing-song voice, raising her eyebrows as if she were about to tell the joke of the year. My heart still suspected nothing. "That I don't have to do anything at home anymore," she continued, and my stomach tightened. The camera spun. It showed my kitchen, where I was at that moment but washing the breakfast dishes that they had left. I was visible from the back, wearing my yellow floral apron, the same one I've used for years, because it reminds me of when my husband Robert was still alive. "My mother-in-law does nothing in her life," Jenny said with a mocking tone. "So it's her obligation to take care of the house and the children. Or what else is she going to do? Sit around watching television all day?" She laughed. That laugh I knew from family meals, from Sunday afternoons. But now it sounded different. It sounded cruel. The comments loaded on my screen. Thousands. "Ha ha 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 ha. You're right. That's what mothers-in-law are for. Take advantage, sister. Let the old folks work. Oh yeah, let her earn her keep." I felt something break inside me. It wasn't a loud, dramatic pain. It was worse. It was like when an antique cup that you loved breaks, and the sound is so soft you barely hear it. But when you look at the floor, it's all in pieces. My hands were shaking, holding the phone. 63,000 likes, 800 comments, thousands of shares. Me turned into the afternoon's entertainment for thousands of people who didn't know me, who didn't know my name, who didn't know what I had built, what I had sacrificed, what I had given. I closed the application, but the image remained burned into my eyes, into my soul. I stood up from the armchair. My legs held me, but I felt as if I were walking on cotton. I went to the kitchen and poured water into a glass, one of those I bought when I got married, almost 50 years ago. I drank slowly, trying to make my breathing return to normal. I heard laughter from the room of Jenny and my son Stephen. She was showing him the video. I heard her voice. "Look, honey, it already has more than 50,000 likes. People understand, see?" And the worst came next. The voice of my son, my Stephen, the child I carried in my arms when his father died, and people told me I wouldn't be able to raise him alone. The young man I drove to school every morning on 2 buses because we didn't have a car. The man I hugged on his wedding day, promising him he would always have a home with me. "Oh, Jenny, you're right. Besides, Mom is getting old. What else can she do?" They laughed together. In that moment, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I just smiled. A small, still smile that came from a deep place I didn't even know myself. Because in that second, as I listened to their laughter, as I watched the notifications keep coming to my cell phone, which I still had in my hand, I understood something that would change everything. I had been too good, too quiet, too available. I had mistaken love for invisibility, and that was going to end. I opened the video again. I watched the whole thing, every second, every mocking gesture, every comment that called me a dependent or a family burden. And as I watched it, my mind started working, because Jenny had just made the biggest mistake of her life. She didn't know who she was messing with. She didn't know that this house she walked on with such comfort, that she traversed with such arrogance, had an owner. And that owner was not a weak or defeated woman. It was I, Eleanor Smith, and I was about to remind everyone who built these walls. I turned off my cell phone. I took off my apron. I poured myself another cup of coffee. And I started planning. Because if I learned anything in 68 years of life, it's that battles are not won by shouting. They are won by thinking, by waiting, by acting at the exact right moment. And my moment was about to arrive. But before I tell you how I gave them the lesson of their lives, subscribe to this channel, because this story is just beginning, and believe me, you'll want to know how it ends. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bedroom, the smallest one in the house, the one with a view of the alley and not the garden, staring at the ceiling while I listened to Stephen and Jenny snoring from the master bedroom, the one that was mine for 30 years, the one I gave up so they could be more comfortable. I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, as always. My bones already have that internal clock that doesn't need an alarm. I put on my robe, worn at the elbows, but clean, and I went out to the backyard. The air was fresh. It smelled like damp earth, even though it hadn't rained. I sat on the cement bench next to the lemon tree, that tree I planted when Stephen was 5 years old, and which now yields lemons as big as fists. And there, in the darkness, still broken only by the yellow light of the street lamp, I let the memories come. Because I needed to remember. I needed my own history to give me the strength that felt like it was slipping through my fingers. I bought this house in 1983. Let me repeat it so you understand perfectly. I bought it. With my money, with my hands. I was 28 years old, and I had just buried Robert. Stomach cancer. 4 months from the diagnosis until he closed his eyes for the last time, squeezing my hand as if he wanted to take a piece of me with him. I was left alone with Stephen, a 3-year-old boy who still asked for his dad every night before bed. With no savings, with no family who could help us. My parents had already died, and Robert's family disappeared as soon as they knew there was no inheritance. People told me, "Sell the house, Eleanor. Go back to your hometown. Find a man to support you." I smiled at them, and inside I thought, I'll die first. I got a job at Don Victor's textile factory, down by the industrial district. Shift from 7 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I sewed pockets on denim jeans, 500 per day. My fingers bled the first few weeks until calluses formed that were so hard I no longer felt the needles. But it wasn't enough. So I got another job. From 5 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night, I cleaned offices in a downtown building. I took Stephen with me. I sat him in a chair with his crayons and his little books, while I mopped floors, emptied trash cans, polished desks, where others made important decisions. I slept 4 hours, sometimes 3. On weekends, I sold barbecue sandwiches and potato salad that I prepared Friday nights. I took them in a large cooler to the church square. Stephen helped me shout, "Hot barbecue sandwiches! Get your potato salad!" Every dollar I earned, I saved in a metal box I hid under my bed. No luxuries, no new clothes, No going out. Only work. Only saving. Only the dream of having my own place where my son could grow up safe. It took me 5 years. 5 years of waking up before the sun and going to bed when it had already risen again. 5 years of watching Stephen grow up almost without me, raised between factories and offices, eating cold sandwiches and sleeping in borrowed chairs. But in 1988, when Stephen turned 8 years old, I signed the deeds to this house. It was small then. 2 rooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen and living room that were one space. The walls had cracks, the roof leaked when it rained hard. The floor tiles were broken. There was no yard, just a patch of dirt with weeds. But it was mine. I cried the day I got the keys. I cried so much that Stephen got scared and hugged me, saying, "Don't cry, Mommy, we're going to be okay now." And I started to fix it up. I glued the bathroom tiles myself. I watched tutorials at the library. I asked for advice from the construction workers in the neighborhood. I bought the cheapest material and installed it with my own hands. I cut myself. I burned myself with the cement mix. My back hurt for weeks, but it looked beautiful. I painted the walls light yellow because I wanted the light to come in. I planted the lemon tree. I put pots with red geraniums at the entrance. I built the cement bench where I was now sitting. When Stephen turned 15, we already had a complete yard. We held his party here. We invited 30 people. There was music, barbecue, 3-layer cake that I made with my grandmother's recipe. My son hugged me that night and told me, "Thank you for giving us this house, Mum. Someday I'm going to take care of you like you took care of me." I kept those words in my heart like a treasure. When Stephen finished high school, I expanded the house. I took out a loan and built 2 more bedrooms, one for him, one for me. I separated them with a hallway so he could have privacy. I gave him his own closet, his own space. "For when you bring your wife," I joked. He laughed. "Mum, you're always going to be the queen of this house." I paid off that loan in 3 years, working double shifts again, without complaining, because it was for my son, for our future. Stephen studied business administration at a state university. I paid for his books, his bus fare, his food. I worked cleaning houses on Saturdays and Sundays so he could concentrate on his studies and not have to work. He graduated with honors. We cried together on his graduation day. He gave me a bouquet of yellow flowers, my favorites, and told all his classmates, "This is from my mom. She's the reason I'm here." I was the proudest woman in the world. 2 years later, he met Jenny. She worked as a receptionist at the company where Stephen got his first job. She was pretty, nice, polite. I liked her from the beginning. When Stephen told me they were getting married, I hugged her and said, "Welcome to the family, honey. This house is yours too." I believed every word that came out of my mouth. We organized the wedding here, in the backyard. We didn't have money for a big hall, but we made something beautiful. Lights strung in the trees, tables with white tablecloths that I sewed myself, food prepared with the help of the neighbors. Jenny cried with happiness. She hugged me and said, "Thank you, mother-in-law. Stephen is so lucky to have a mum like you." When they returned from their honeymoon, 3 days in a resort town that I paid for, I offered them to stay in the house while they saved up for their own place. "It's not forever," Stephen said. "Just until we get the down payment for an apartment." "Take all the time you need," I replied, and I gave them the master bedroom, mine, the one with the big closet, the window overlooking the garden, the private bathroom that cost me so much to build. "You're young, you need your space," I told them as I carried my things to the small room. Stephen protested. Jenny said, "Oh, mother-in-law, you don't have to." But I insisted, "Because that's just how I am. I've always been this way. I give, I yield, I make myself small so others can grow." Caroline was born, then little Sam was born. I became the full-time grandmother. I took care of the children while Jenny worked. I bathed them, fed them, helped them with their homework. I got up in the middle of the night when they cried so their parents could sleep. I'm a light sleeper anyway, I would say. I cleaned the house, cooked for everyone, did their laundry, ironed Stephen's shirts, did the grocery shopping with my pension because, after all, I eat less. I never asked for anything in return. I never complained, because I believed that was love. But sitting there in the backyard, at 5 o'clock in the morning, the day after that awful video, I realized something that split me in two. I had become invisible in my own house, not because I was old or useless, but because I gave so much that I stopped existing as a person. I became a function, a service, the woman who cleans, cooks, takes care of children, and the worst part is that I allowed it. The sun was starting to rise, the birds were singing in the lemon tree. I heard the door of Stephen's room open and close. Footsteps toward the bathroom. I wiped away the tears I hadn't known were falling. I touched the wall of the house. Cold, solid, mine. Every brick had my sweat, every tile my blood, every corner my history. And no one was going to take that away from me, much less someone who never had to build anything with their own hands. I got up from the bench, straightened my back, took a deep breath. The war had begun. But first I needed to know exactly what I was fighting against. What will happen when Eleanor confronts her son? Will Stephen be able to see the truth? Or is he too blind with love? I waited until breakfast. I prepared steak and eggs, Stephen's favourite since he was a child, with shredded meat, sour cream, and fresh cheese. I set the table carefully, clean plates, folded napkins, freshly squeezed orange juice in the glass pitcher I inherited from my mother. Jenny came down first. She was wearing pink silk pajamas that cost more than $120. I know because I saw the receipt in her bag, and her hair pulled up in a perfect ponytail. She looked rested, radiant. "Good morning, mother-in-law," she said with that sing-song voice that now sounded false to me. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her while I poured coffee into her favorite mug, the one with the floral design that she bought herself and that no one else can use. "Jenny," I said finally in a quiet voice, "I need to talk to you." She looked up from her cell phone, because she hadn't even stopped checking her phone to greet me. "Yes?" "Tell me." Her tone was distracted, uninterested. "I saw your video." The silence that followed was so heavy I felt the air in the kitchen change. Jenny blinked. Once. Twice. Then she let out a nervous giggle. "Oh, mother-in-law, what video are you talking about?" "The one on TikTok, where you say it's my obligation to take care of the house and your children because I don't do anything else with my life." Her cheeks turned red, but it wasn't shame I saw in her eyes. It was annoyance. Annoyance because I had caught her. "Oh, you're exaggerating. It was just a joke." She got up to pour herself more coffee, turning her back to me. "People understood it was a joke." 63,000 people laughing at me doesn't seem like a joke to me, Jenny." I heard footsteps on the stairs. Stephen was coming down. He was wearing the pajamas I gave him for Christmas, and his hair was messy. He looked tired. He works hard, I know. But when he saw my face, he knew something was wrong. "What's going on?" he asked, looking between the two of us. Jenny beat me to it. She approached him with that victim expression that I now recognized perfectly. "Your mum is mad about a video I posted. But honey, it was just a joke. Everyone on TikTok knows it's fun content. It's not meant to be taken seriously." Stephen looked at me, and in his eyes I saw something that hurt me more than 1,000 videos. Doubt. He doubted me. Mum, what video is she talking about? I took out my cell phone. My hands trembled slightly, but I held it steady. I opened TikTok and searched for Jenny's profile. The video was still there. It now had 92,000 likes. I showed it to him. Stephen watched the whole thing. I saw his eyes move following the images, how he read the comments, how his expression went from curiosity to discomfort. But then he spoke, and his words were worse than any insult. Mum, I think you're overreacting. I felt as if a bucket of cold water had been dumped on my back. Overreacting? I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. It's just that… Stephen scratched the back of his neck, uncomfortable. It's just a video. Jenny has a lot of followers. She makes that kind of content. It's not personal. It's not personal. My voice rose in volume without me being able to control it. She filmed me without my permission. She exposed me in front of thousands of people. She said it's my obligation to serve you, and it's not personal. Jenny crossed her arms. She was no longer pretending to be sorry. Mother-in-law, you yourself told me 2 weeks ago that you loved taking care of the kids, that it was the best part of your life. I just repeated your words. That was true. I had said that, but not in the way she presented it, not with that tone of mockery, not to justify being used. Besides, Jenny continued, now with more confidence because she saw that Stephen wasn't defending me, we all live together. It's normal for everyone to contribute. We pay the utilities, the groceries, you help with the house. We all contribute. Something in my chest tightened so much I thought I was going to faint. You pay the utilities? I asked slowly. The groceries? Well, yeah, Stephen said, as if it were obvious. The electric bill, the gas, the water, the supermarket. It all comes out of my paycheck. I sat down in the chair because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. Stephen, I said, looking him directly in the eyes, do you know whose name this house is in? He frowned. What does that have to do with anything? Answer me. Well, I don't know. I guess my dad's, or both of yours. Jenny also looked at me now with curiosity. I felt something break inside me. Not sadness, pure indignation. This house is in my name, only my name. I bought it in 1988 with my money. Every dollar I paid for the down payment, every monthly payment for 15 years, came from my hands. Your father never saw it finished because he died before I could buy it. The silence was absolute. I built the bathroom with my hands. I glued these tiles. I planted that garden where your children play, and I have never, ever charged you a single dollar in rent. Stephen opened his mouth, but I continued. The utilities you pay with such pride are for my house. The groceries you buy are cooked on my stove, stored in my refrigerator, served at my table. You sleep in my bedroom. You bathe in my bathroom. You breathe in my living room. I saw Jenny clench her jaw. And never in 5 years that you've been living here have I asked for anything more than respect. Mum, calm down, Stephen said, and that sentence was the last straw. Calm down, I asked, after your wife exhibited me in front of thousands of people. After I'm called a dependent, a useless old woman, a family burden. After you two laughed at me. Stephen went pale. You heard us? I heard you yesterday afternoon laughing at the video. You said, "Oh, Jenny, you're right. Besides, Mom is getting old. What else can she do?" My son lowered his gaze. He couldn't meet my eyes, but Jenny did, and what I saw in her eyes chilled my blood. There was no regret. There was annoyance. Well, if it bothers you so much, she said, letting the words out like daggers. I can delete the video. Happy? It's not about the video, Jenny. It's about respect. It's about this being my house, and I deserve to be treated with dignity in it. No one has disrespected you. She raised her voice now. You're the one making a huge drama about something everyone does on social media. You should be grateful I included you in my content. Other influencers charge to appear in their videos. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I looked at my son, hoping he would say something, that he would defend me, that he would set boundaries with his wife. But Stephen just said, with a tired voice, "Mum, I think you're both overreacting. Jenny, delete the video. Mum, forgive her. Okay? I don't want fights in this house." And there I understood everything. My son was not going to defend me. He had chosen false peace over justice. He had chosen not to inconvenience his wife over protecting his mother. I got up from the table. The steak and eggs had gotten cold. No one had tasted them. "You're right," I said with a calm I didn't feel. "I don't want fights. Have a good day." I went up to my room. I locked the door. And for the first time in a long time, I cried. But not from sadness, from rage. Because I had just discovered that in my own house, the one I built with my hands, the one I paid for with my blood and sweat, I was worth less than the comfort of a manipulative daughter-in-law and the cowardice of a blind son. But if I've learned anything in this life, it's that tears dry up, and rage turns into action. I wiped my face. I opened the drawer of my nightstand. I took out an old notebook where I kept important numbers. And I started making calls. Because Jenny and Stephen had just made a terrible mistake. They believed that because I was older, I was weak. They were about to learn that the women of my generation did not survive by being weak. We survived by being smarter than our enemies. Who will Eleanor call? What will she discover that will change everything? The truth is about to explode. 3 days passed, 3 days in which I acted as if nothing had happened. I prepared breakfasts, I picked up toys, I smiled when the children hugged me. I greeted Jenny courteously when she passed by me as if I were part of the furniture. But inside, everything had changed. Now I observed, I listened, I took mental note of every detail I had previously let slide. On Monday night, Jenny went out with her friends. She came back at 11 o'clock smelling of cigarettes and expensive perfume that I hadn't known she wore. Stephen was asleep. He didn't ask her anything when she arrived. On Tuesday, while cleaning their room, because yes, I kept doing it, even though every fibre of my being screamed at me to stop, I found a receipt from an Italian restaurant. $24 for a meal for 2. Date, Wednesday of last week, the day Jenny told me she was going to run errands at the bank. I didn't say anything. I just folded the receipt and put it in the pocket of my apron. Wednesday was when everything changed. It was almost midnight. I couldn't sleep. Lately I was sleeping worse than ever, tossing and turning, thinking about everything that had happened. I went down to the kitchen for a glass of water with lemon, that remedy that always calms my nerves. The house was dark and silent. I could only hear the hum of the refrigerator and the distant barking of a dog on the street. I poured my water. I squeezed half a lemon into it. I was about to go upstairs when I heard Jenny's voice. It was coming from the backyard. She was talking on the phone. I froze next to the kitchen door, in the shadows, glass in hand. "No, Mum, not yet," Jenny was saying in a low but clear voice. "I'm telling you this takes time." Silence. I heard someone on the other end. I know, but I can't just pressure her. The old lady is more stubborn than we thought." My heart started beating faster. "Look, I'll explain it to you again," Jenny continued impatiently. "As soon as she dies, This house automatically goes to Stephen. He's her only child. And what's Stephen's is mine. That's how inheritances work. I felt the floor move beneath my feet. The lawyer told me that since we've been living here for 5 years, we have possessory rights. We can claim that we have contributed to the maintenance of the property. Besides, she's old now. How long does she have left? 10 years? 5? She was talking about my death like someone talks about the weather. No, Stephen doesn't know anything, Jenny said, letting out a dry laugh. And he can't know. You know how he is, all sentimental about his mummy. If I tell him the house is going to be ours, he'll start crying and saying his mom deserves respect and all that nonsense. I had to cover my mouth to stop the scream that wanted to escape my throat. Of course I respect her, Mum. But we have to be practical. This house is easily worth $300,000. Do you know how much we could do with that money? Sell it. Buy something bigger in a better area. Invest what's left over. $300,000. My house. My life. My sacrifice. Reduced to a number in this woman's head. Look, I already talked to the lawyer last week. He explained everything to me. Since the house is only in her name, and there's no registered will, it passes directly to the compulsory heir, which is Stephen. And that's it. She doesn't even have to do anything. It's automatic. I heard the click of a lighter. Jenny was smoking, something she always denied when Stephen asked her if she was still doing that vice. The only problem would be if she makes a will and leaves the house to someone else. But to whom? She has no one else. And I seriously doubt that at her age she's thinking about those things. Old women of her generation don't go to notaries or draw up papers. They live in the past. I felt the rage rise through my chest like hot lava. Besides, even if she made a will, I already checked. The compulsory heirs can claim their share. Stephen will always have a right to something. So either way, we win. Another silence. I heard her take a long drag from the cigarette. The video? Oh, Mom, that was something else. It was for my audience, for the engagement. You know how this works. The more controversy, the more views. And yes, the old lady got mad. But she'll get over it. What's she going to do? Kick us out? She doesn't have the guts. You saw how dramatic she got. But at the end of the day, she kept cooking and cleaning as always. That's when something inside me stopped hurting and started burning. Don't worry, Jenny said, with a confidence that made me nauseous. Everything is under control. I'll make sure to keep her happy and useful. As long as she keeps believing we're a happy family, she won't make any strange moves. And when the time comes, well, that's that. The house is ours. She hung up. I heard her footsteps approaching the house. I moved quickly. I went up the stairs as silently as I could, my heart pounding against my ribs so hard I thought my chest would explode. I entered my room. I closed the door. I leaned against it with my legs trembling. I still had the glass of water in my hand. I placed it on the nightstand so carefully that it didn't make a sound. And then I realized something. My cell phone. I had left it in the pocket of my robe, and without thinking, purely by instinct, or perhaps because God was guiding me, I had pressed record when I heard Jenny's first sentence. With trembling hands, I took out the phone. The audio had recorded everything, every word, every plan, every lie. 8 minutes and 43 seconds of pure evidence. I sat on the bed. I listened to the full audio to make sure it had recorded well. Jenny's voice sounded clear. Her words were unmistakable. When it finished, I stared at the phone screen, and for the first time in days, I smiled. Not a bitter smile, not a sad smile, a smile of a woman who has just found the winning cards in a game she thought was lost. Because Jenny was right about one thing. The women of my generation don't go to lawyers, except when we do. I looked at the clock. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. Too late to call, but not too late to plan. I opened the notebook where I kept important numbers. I flipped through the pages until I found what I was looking for. Harriet Ramirez, my best friend for 30 years, a former notary. Retired 5 years ago, but with more legal knowledge in her little finger than any young lawyer. And below, another number. Robert Smith, Jr., my nephew, the son of my brother who died 10 years ago, a lawyer specializing in family and probate law. A good man who visited me every month and always told me, "Aunt, anything you need, call me." I had never needed anything, until now. I hid the cell phone under my pillow, as if it were a treasure, because it was. It was my ammunition. I lay down but didn't sleep. I couldn't. My mind was working at full speed, formulating plans, calculating moves, thinking 3 steps ahead. Jenny thought she was smart. Jenny thought I was a naive old woman who was going to let herself be used until the day I died. Jenny had no idea who she had messed with, because I had survived the death of my husband. I had raised a son alone. I had built a house with my own hands. I had worked 20 hours a day for years, and she thought she was going to beat me with cheap lies and mediocre plans. Poor girl. She had no idea of the storm she had just unleashed. The next morning, I went down for breakfast, as always. I prepared eggs with hash browns. I poured coffee. I greeted them with a smile. Jenny looked at me with that expression of superiority that I now recognized perfectly. "Good morning, mother-in-law," she said with false sweetness. "Good morning, dear," I replied. And as I served her plate, as I watched Stephen read the newspaper without paying attention to me, as I listened to my grandchildren argue over the television remote, I thought of one thing. Enjoy these days, because your world is about to collapse, and this time there will be no TikTok video to save it. What will Eleanor do with that recording? Can she trust her nephew? The counterattack is about to begin. Don't underestimate me for my grey hair. On Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning, while Jenny was at the gym and Stephen was at work, I left the house with my most discreet handbag and the cell phone safely tucked away in my pocket. I told the children I was going to the grocery store. Caroline barely looked up from her tablet. Sam was watching cartoons. I took a taxi, an expense I usually avoid, but this was urgent. And I gave the address of the notary office where Harriet had worked before retiring. She now lived in a small apartment near downtown, in a building from the 1970s, with mustard-colored walls and plants on every balcony. I rang the doorbell. I heard hurried footsteps. "Who is it?" Harriet's voice asked over the intercom. "It's me, dear. Eleanor." A brief silence. Then the buzzer sounded, opening the door. I went up to the 3rd floor by the stairs because the elevator never works. Harriet was waiting for me at the door of her apartment, with her white hair pulled back in a bun and her glasses hanging from a chain over her burgundy knitted sweater. "Eleanor," she said, looking at me with those sharp eyes that miss nothing. "By your face, I know this is not a social visit." I entered. The apartment smelled of freshly brewed coffee and the cinnamon candles that Harriet has always liked. We sat in her small but cozy living room, full of books and photographs of her family. "Tell me everything," she said bluntly as she poured me a cup of coffee in delicate porcelain. And I told her everything. The video, the humiliation, the conversation I overheard, Jenny's plan to take over my house. When I finished, I took out my cell phone and played the audio for her. Harriet listened without interrupting. Her expression went from neutral to annoyed, then frankly furious. When the audio ended, she took off her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. "That wicked woman," she said with a flat voice. Harriet never swears. The fact that she did now told me how serious the situation was. Does Stephen know anything about this? Nothing. According to Jenny, he's oblivious. Typical. Harriet took a long sip of her coffee. Sons are always the last to see what their wives really are. And what do you want to do, dear? I want to protect my house. I want them to learn a lesson. And I want Stephen to open his eyes. Harriet nodded slowly, thinking. First things first. Your house is in your name, correct? Yes. Only your name. I never put it in Stephen's name because, I don't know, something stopped me. That something is called instinct, and it saved you. Harriet put her glasses back on. Second, do you have a will? I shook my head. Then Jenny is right about one thing. If you die without a will, the house automatically goes to Stephen as the compulsory heir. But that has a solution. You need to make a will right away, and you need to talk to my nephew, Robert. I thought the same thing. I have his number. Call him right now. I'll text him too. That boy is good, and he's discreet. I dialed the number while Harriet sent a WhatsApp message. Robert answered on the third ring. Aunt Eleanor, is everything okay? His voice was warm, worried. Robert was 38 years old. He was an only child, and after his father, my brother George, died of a heart attack, I helped him with his college expenses. He had never made me pay him back, but he always told me he owed me everything. Robert, I need to see you. It's urgent, and it's legal. There was a pause. Where are you? With your Aunt Harriet. I'll be out of a hearing in 20 minutes. I'll be there in 40. Don't move. He hung up. Harriet smiled. That boy is one of the good ones, like his father. The next 30 minutes we spent drinking coffee and planning. Harriet, with her sharp legal mind, even after retiring, explained my options to me. You can make a will where you leave the house to whoever you want. To Stephen, to a foundation, to a church, to me, if you want. It's your property. I don't want to disinherit my son. He's her victim too. I know, but you can put conditions. You can create a trust. You can divide the property. There are many legal options that protect your interests and teach that viper a lesson without leaving your son on the street. And what about the video? Can I do anything about that? Harriet frowned. Legally, it's complicated. You didn't sign any consent to appear in the video, but since it was filmed in your own house and she lives there, it's a grey area. You could ask for it to be taken down for unauthorized use of your image, but it would be a long process. I don't want long processes. I want fast justice. Then let's go for what really hurts. The assets. You take away what she really wants and destroy her without going to court. I smiled. That's why Harriet had been the best notary in the area. There was a knock at the door. Robert had arrived. I saw him through the peephole. Tall, strongly built, with a trimmed beard and a dark grey suit. He was carrying a leather briefcase. Harriet opened the door. Aunt, Robert greeted, kissing her cheek. Then he turned to me. Aunt Eleanor. He hugged me. A real hug, the kind that reminds you that you're not alone in the world. The three of us sat around the coffee table. Robert took out a notepad and a pen. Tell me everything. And I did. For the second time that morning, I recounted the entire story. I showed him the audio. Robert listened with an increasingly serious expression. When the audio ended, he closed his notepad and leaned back in the armchair. Aunt, that woman is not just manipulative. She's dangerous. And what she's saying is technically correct from a legal point of view, But ethically, it's garbage. Can I do something? You can do a lot, and we're going to do it. Robert opened his briefcase and took out several documents. First option, open public will. You state who inherits what, under what conditions. It's unassailable if done correctly. Can I set conditions? Of course. You can say Stephen only inherits the house if he gets divorced. You can say the house is sold and the money is divided among your grandchildren. You can create a trust where you continue to have control until your death. And then it passes to whoever you designate. The options are many. I don't want to punish Stephen. I want to protect myself from her. Robert nodded. Then I suggest this. You create a trust. You are the grantor and the lifetime beneficiary. That means the house remains yours and yours alone as long as you live. No one can claim it, sell it, or do anything with it. When you die, you designate heirs with the conditions you want. And Jenny couldn't touch it? Not with a 10-foot pole. The trust is ironclad. Even if Stephen inherited later, it would come in as separate property, not marital. She would have no rights over it. I felt a weight lift from me. How long does that take? If we start today, it will be ready in a week. I need you to bring me the house deeds, your official ID, and come with me to the notary next Tuesday. I'll take care of preparing everything. There's something else, I said, taking a deep breath. I want them out of my house. Robert and Harriet exchanged glances. Evict them? Robert asked. I don't know if that's the right word, but I don't want to continue living with someone who is waiting for me to die to take what is mine. Legally, you can. It's your house. They don't have a lease agreement. They live there by your goodwill, and you can withdraw that goodwill whenever you want. It's that simple? It's that simple. But Aunt... Robert looked at me with concern. Stephen is your son. This is going to break up the family, are you sure? I remained silent for a long moment. I thought about the cold steak and eggs, the mocking laughter, the viral video, the plan to steal my house, my son's blindness. The family is already broken, Robert. I'm just going to make visible what they destroyed in secret. Harriet squeezed my hand. Then we're going to do it right, Robert said, and we're going to do it legally. I'll help you every step of the way. We left there 2 hours later with a clear plan. On Tuesday, we would go to the notary to set up the trust. On Wednesday, Robert would help me make a legal inventory of everything that was mine in the house. And on Thursday, we would execute the master move. I returned home by taxi. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Jenny was in the living room painting her nails while watching a show on television. She didn't even turn around when I walked in. Did you buy vegetables? She asked, without taking her eyes off the screen. I forgot, I lied. I'll go tomorrow. Oh, mother-in-law, how scatterbrained. Well, we'll have to order pizza then. I looked at her there, so comfortable in my armchair, using my electricity, breathing my air, planning to steal my life. And I smiled. Yes, dear, order pizza. I went up to my room. I locked away the documents Robert had given me and dialed one more number on my cell phone. Hello? Cousin Mary, it's Eleanor. I need a favor, and it has to do with social media. Mary, my second cousin, was 50 years old and had more than 200,000 followers on TikTok. She was famous for her traditional cooking videos, but she also knew how the algorithm worked, how to make something go viral, how to tell a story that hit straight to the heart. Tell me everything, she said with that energy that always characterized her. And I told her. When I finished, Mary let out a long whistle. Cousin, that girl picked a fight with the wrong person. When you're ready for your revenge, let me know. I'll make sure half of America finds out. I hung up. Everything was in place. The chess pieces set. The plan drawn out. Now all that was left was to wait for the exact moment to move the queen and destroy the enemy king. What surprise awaits Jenny? How will she react when she discovers that the old lady isn't so defenseless? The blow is about to fall. The weekend arrived with unexpected news. Jenny walked into the kitchen on Friday night, with her cell phone in her hand and that spoiled child smile she wore when she wanted something. "Mother-in-law," she said in a sugary voice, "guess what? We won a weekend getaway at the resort. The Palm Springs getaway. A raffle from my job. Everything paid for. Hotel, meals, spa. We leave early tomorrow and come back Monday night." My heart jumped, but I kept my face neutral. "Ace, that's wonderful, dear. You deserve it. You've worked hard." Stephen appeared behind her carrying a suitcase. "Mum, are you sure you'll be okay? It's 3 days." "Son, I'm 68, not 88. I can take care of myself." "It's just the children," he began to say. "The children are staying with me." "Or were you planning to take them to the spa?" I said, raising an eyebrow. Jenny and Stephen exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Well, we thought that—" Jenny bit her lip. "They could come with us. There's a children's pool. Or they can stay with Grandma and have a good time here. We'll make cookies, watch movies, go to the park." I looked at Caroline and Sam, who had just run in. "What do you prefer, kids? Boring spa with your parents or a fun weekend with Grandma?" "With Grandma," they both shouted at the same time. Case closed. I saw the annoyance in Jenny's eyes, but she didn't say anything. Stephen seemed relieved not to have to deal with the children on their romantic weekend. They left Saturday at 7 o'clock in the morning. I saw them off at the door with kisses and hugs. Jenny gave me a loose hug, the kind that means nothing. "Take care, mother-in-law, and take good care of the children." "As always," I replied with my best obedient grandmother smile. Stephen kissed my forehead. "Thanks, Mum. You're the best." I watched them get into the car. I watched them drive away down the street. I watched them turn the corner and disappear. I closed the door, I took a deep breath, and I pulled out my cell phone. "Robert, they've left." "Perfect. I'll be there in 30 minutes with the van." I went up to wake the children. I gave them a quick breakfast of cereal with milk and banana. "Grandma, are we going to the park?" Sam asked with his mouth full. "Later, honey. First, Grandma has some things to do. In the meantime, do you want to watch movies on my tablet?" Their eyes lit up. Normally, I don't let them watch television in the morning, so this was a treat. I set them up in the living room with blankets and my tablet loaded with their favorite cartoons. I gave them cookies and juice. They would be entertained for at least 2 hours. At 8:30, Robert arrived. He wasn't alone. He had a small moving van and 2 strong men in blue overalls. "Aunt," Robert greeted, stepping out of his truck. "Let me introduce you to Mike and Joe. They're trustworthy. They work with a friend of mine, discreet and fast." The men greeted me respectfully, taking off their caps. "Good morning, Ma'am. Where should we start?" I opened the front door for them. The master bedroom upstairs. Everything in there is theirs. Clothes, furniture they brought, their personal belongings. Everything comes out. Robert took out a notepad. "Let's do this right. I'm going to write down every single thing we take out. Photos, too. Just in case they accuse us of theft, we have evidence that we only took what belonged to them." For the next 3 hours, those 2 men worked like organized ants. They took out the modern dresser that Jenny had bought 2 years ago, the king-size bed they brought when they got married because the house one was too old, the vanity with the LED-lit mirror, the floating shelves, The 50-inch television that Stephen installed on the wall, every box of Jenny's shoes, every one of Stephen's suits, every dress, every tie, every perfume, every face cream, every beauty product, everything. Robert took photos of everything before taking it downstairs. I checked things off on a list. The bookcase, I said, pointing to the dark wood piece of furniture next to the window. Are you sure? Robert said. It's nice. They bought it a year ago. I have an old pine one that was left in the backyard shed when they put this one in. Out. The men disassembled it and took it down piece by piece. When they finished with the master bedroom, it looked like an empty hotel room. All that remained were the walls painted light blue, the colour I chose 15 years ago, and the hardwood floor that I myself had paid for. Now the bathroom, I said. We took everything out. Jenny's expensive products that cost more than $50 each, Stephen's electric toothbrush, the new towels they bought last year, the laundry basket they brought, even the bath mat. I left only the old towels that were mine and a basic bar of soap. The living room? Mike asked, wiping the sweat from his forehead. I looked around. The grey sectional sofa that took up half the space. They bought it 2 years ago when my blue fabric one no longer matched their style. Out. The television? That one is theirs too. The one I had was smaller and they put it in their room. They took out the sofa, the glass coffee table, the 60-inch television, the sound system, even the decorative plants in modern pots that Jenny had put in to give life to the space. I got my old navy blue armchair out of the storage room. It was a little worn but clean and comfortable. We put it back in its usual spot. My 32-inch television returned to the living room. My carved wooden coffee table that had been my mother's recovered its place. The house was starting to look like my house again. The kitchen? Joe asked. Take out the Italian coffee maker that Jenny brought, the set of non-stick pans they bought, the new blender, the microwave oven they installed, everything that wasn't here before they arrived. We even opened the pantry. This set of minimalist white plates is theirs, I said, pointing to the square plates I hated. Take out the whole set. I have my floral plates saved. Robert looked at me with something close to admiration. Aunt, you are relentless. I am fair. I'm keeping what's mine. They're taking what's theirs. What's the problem? He smiled. At 12 o'clock, the van was full. Where are we taking it? Roberto asked. To the Pines storage on Main Street, Robert said, giving him a paper with the address. It's already rented and paid for 1 month. Here's the key. I gave him the key I had gotten on Thursday, a 60-square-foot storage unit, enough for all their things. The men left with the van. Robert stayed with me. Now comes the interesting part, he said, taking a small toolbox out of his truck. He changed the lock on the front door. The old silver lock that had been there for 15 years was replaced with a new gold steel one. Here. He gave me 3 new keys. 1 for you, 1 spare, and 1 just in case. Is this legal? I asked, although I already knew the answer. Completely, it's your house. You can change the locks whenever you want. They don't have tenant rights because they don't pay rent. Legally, they are guests living by your goodwill. I put the keys in my pocket. The house looked different. More empty, but more mine, as if it had recovered its soul. I cleaned everything. I swept, I mopped, I dusted. I arranged my old furniture in its original places. I took out the photographs I had stored away. Of Robert Sr., of Stephen when he was a child, of my parents, and put them back on the walls. I put tablecloths on the dining room table, the hand-embroidered ones my mother gave me when I got married. I watered the garden plants. And when I was finished, I sat in my blue armchair, in my living room, in my house, and had a cup of coffee in my favorite mug, the one with the little flowers that Jenny had banished to the back of the cupboard for being old-fashioned. The children were still watching cartoons, oblivious to everything. Robert sat next to me. "Do you feel good about this?" I thought about the question. I looked for guilt, remorse, doubt. I found nothing, only peace. "I feel free," I finally said. He nodded. "They'll be back on Monday. Are you ready for that?" "More than ready." "It's going to be ugly, Aunt." "I know, but the ugly part already happened when they turned me into a meme, when they planned to rob me, when my son laughed at me. That was ugly. This is justice." Robert got up. "I'll be here on Monday, at whatever time you tell me. You won't be alone." "Thank you, nephew." After he left, I prepared my grandchildren's favorite meal: homemade chicken nuggets, French fries, and colored gelatin. We ate in the garden, sitting on the cement bench under the lemon tree. "Grandma, why did they take so many things out of the house?" Caroline, my 9-year-old granddaughter, who is more observant than anyone thought, suddenly asked. "I was tidying up, honey. Sometimes you have to take out what's no longer useful to make room for better things." "Are my parents going to be mad?" I looked into her eyes, those light brown eyes she inherited from Stephen. "Maybe, but sometimes adults have to do difficult things so everyone can learn. Do you understand?" She nodded, though she probably didn't fully understand. The rest of the weekend was strangely quiet. We played, watched movies, made chocolate chip cookies. I read them stories before bed in my bed, the three of us crowded but happy. On Sunday night, after putting the children to bed, I sat in the dark living room. Tomorrow they would return. Tomorrow they would see what I had done. Tomorrow everything would change. I took out my cell phone and wrote a message to Robert. "Arrive at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They will have arrived by then." His answer was immediate. "I'll be there, Aunt, with all the legal backing you need." I put away the phone. I looked around my house, my real house, the one I built, the one I defended, the one no one was going to take from me. And I waited, because the storm was about to break. And this time, I was the lightning. How will Jenny and Stephen react when they see the empty house? What will happen when their keys don't work? The moment of truth has arrived. On Monday at 4:30 in the afternoon, I heard the car park in front of the house. I was sitting in my blue armchair, hands crossed in my lap, my back straight. I had brewed coffee, a full pot, because this was going to be long. The children were in the backyard, playing with their toy cars. I had told them not to come out until I called them. I heard the car doors close. Voices, laughter. They were happy from their weekend getaway. Footsteps approaching the door, the sound of a key going into the lock, turning, not opening. Silence, again. The key, the attempt, the resistance. "What the heck? It won't open," Stephen's voice confused. "Try again," Jenny said impatiently. More attempts, more metallic sounds of frustration. "Is it jammed?" Stephen sounded worried now. I got up from the armchair, smoothed my dress. I had put on my favorite one, the beige one with embroidered flowers, the one I wear for important occasions. I walked to the door. From inside I could hear them struggling with the lock. I opened it. Stephen was standing there with the key in his hand, sweating. Jenny was behind him with an annoyed look, carrying her very expensive beach bag. "Mom, good thing you're here. The lock is jammed. We can't," Stephen began to say. "It's not jammed." I interrupted him in a calm voice. "I changed it." Absolute silence. They both stared at me as if I had spoken in another language. You changed it, Jenny asked with a nervous laugh. Why would you do that? Because it's my house, and I decided to change the locks. Mum, what is going on? Stephen dropped his suitcase. His face showed genuine confusion. Come in, I said, stepping aside. But please leave your luggage outside. What? No, it's hot. Jenny tried to enter with her luggage. I said leave them outside, I repeated more firmly. Something in my tone stopped them. They left the suitcases on the porch and walked in. And then they saw it. Jenny was the first to realize. Her eyes scanned the living room as if it were a place she had never seen before. Where is my living room? She asked in a high-pitched voice. Where is the sofa? The television? What did you do? Stephen looked around with his mouth open. Mum, where is everything? In a storage unit, I replied calmly, sitting back down in my armchair. On Main Street. Your things are there, waiting for you. Our things? Jenny's voice went up 3 octaves. What did you do with our things? I moved them to a safe place. Everything you brought into this house is packed and stored. Nothing was lost. Everything is inventoried. Jenny ran toward the stairs. I heard her go up the steps 2 at a time. I heard her scream from upstairs. Stephen, come up! My son looked at me with a mixture of shock and betrayal. Then he ran up after her. I stayed downstairs. I drank my coffee. I waited. The shouting didn't take long to start. Everything! She took everything! Jenny's voice was pure hysteria. My clothes, my shoes, my vanity, the bed. Running footsteps, doors opening and closing. The bathroom too. My creams. Everything. More footsteps. Coming down now. Jenny first, her face red with fury. Stephen behind her, pale as a sheet. Are you crazy? Jenny yelled, standing in front of me. This is theft. I'm calling the police. You'll go to jail. Call them, I said without getting agitated. I have the house deeds. I have a full inventory of what I took out. I have photos of everything. And I have witnesses. I didn't touch anything that wasn't yours. We live here. You can't just kick us out like that. I'm not kicking you out. Your things are in a safe place. You can stay, but you'll sleep in the rooms I decide, with the furniture I provide, under the rules I establish. Mum, I don't understand. Stephen finally spoke. His voice was trembling. What is all this? Why? What did we do? I looked at him. My son, my only son, and I felt a pang in my chest. But I didn't back down. Stephen, sit down. You too, Jenny. It's time for us to speak the truth. I'm not sitting down. I want my things back now, Jenny screamed. I took my cell phone out of the pocket of my dress. Before you keep shouting, there's something you need to hear. I don't care, Jenny began. I pressed play. Jenny's voice filled the room. No, Mum, not yet. I'm telling you this takes time. I know, but I can't just pressure her. The old lady is more stubborn than we thought. I watched the colour drain from Jenny's face. I let it continue. Every word, every plan, every lie. As soon as she dies, this house automatically goes to Stephen. The lawyer told me that since we've been living here for 5 years, we have possessory rights. This house is easily worth $300,000. Stephen slumped onto the armchair. His face went from confusion to horror. No, Stephen doesn't even know anything. You know how he is. All sentimental about his mummy. My son looked at me. There were tears in his eyes. The audio continued, until the last poisoned word. When it ended, the silence was so dense you could cut it with a knife. That was... Jenny tried to speak, but her voice broke. Taken out of context. A joke? A lie? I finished for her. No, Jenny. That was last Wednesday at 11:30 at night, in my backyard, talking to your mother, planning how to take over my house. I didn't... She was searching for words, excuses, anything. You lied. You manipulated. And worst of all, you lied to my son. You used him as a stepping stone to get to something that never belonged to you. Stephen had his head in his hands. His shoulders were shaking. Stephen, I can explain. Jenny approached him. Don't touch me, he yelled, pushing her away. It was the first time in 5 years I had seen him yell at her. Is it true? Is everything she said in there true? Honey, you have to understand. I just wanted to secure our future. The children's future. Answer me, is it true or not? Jenny opened her mouth. She closed it. And in that silence, Stephen found his answer. He got up from the armchair. He staggered a little. He looked at me with eyes full of tears. Mum, I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know anything about this. I know, I said softly. That's why I didn't take your things too. He let out a sob, a sound that broke my heart, but didn't make me change my mind. What do you want us to do? He asked in a broken voice. At that moment, there was a knock at the door. That must be my lawyer, I said, getting up. He arrived just in time. I opened the door, and Robert entered with his briefcase, impeccably dressed in a dark suit. Good afternoon. I am Mr. Robert Smith, Jr., attorney for Mrs. Eleanor Smith. Are you Stephen Smith and Jenny Gutierrez? The two of them nodded, still in shock. Perfect. I am here to deliver some documents and explain the legal situation. Robert opened his briefcase and pulled out several papers. First, this is a copy of the trust that Mrs. Smith constituted last week. The house is now under an irrevocable trust, where she is the grantor and lifetime beneficiary. That means no one, absolutely no one, can claim rights to this property as long as she lives. He handed copies to each of them. Second, here is the complete inventory of the assets that were removed from the house. As you can see, only belongings you brought after moving in were removed. Nothing that belonged to Mrs. Smith was touched. Third, Robert continued in a professional but firm voice, here is the address and key to the storage unit where your belongings are located. You have 30 days to retrieve them. After that time, Mrs. Smith is not responsible for what happens to them. Jenny looked at the papers as if they were written in hieroglyphics. And fourth, Robert looked at me before continuing, Mrs. Smith is within her rights to ask you to vacate the property at any time, as there is no lease agreement and your stay here has been at the goodwill of the owner. However, everyone looked at me. I'm not going to kick you out, I said. My voice came out stronger than I expected. Stephen, you are my son. You will always be my son. But things are going to change. If you want to stay, there will be rules. Jenny, I looked her straight in the eyes. You can stay too, but with conditions, or you can both leave. The decision is yours. What conditions? Stephen asked, wiping away his tears. First, you will pay rent, $350 a month, to stay in my house. But Mom. Second, you will help with the household chores. Everyone, not just me. There is a schedule that we will make together. Third, respect. Absolute. Towards me, towards this house, towards what I have built. No videos, no mockery, no secret plans. Or you leave. Jenny opened her mouth to protest. And fourth, I continued without letting her speak, Jenny, you are going to delete that video, now, in front of me, and you will post an apology, a real one, or there is no deal. And if I don't accept, Jenny said, with the last bit of pride she had left, then your husband and your children stay, and you leave. The decision is yours. The silence that followed was eternal. Stephen looked at Jenny. Jenny looked at Stephen. They both looked at the legal papers in their hands. And Jenny, for the first time since I met her, broke down. "I'm sorry," she whispered, barely audible. "I'm sorry." I don't know if she meant it, or if it was just because she had no other options. But honestly, at that moment, I no longer cared. I had recovered my house. I had recovered my dignity. And I had recovered my son from the clutches of a lie. The rest would come with time. Will they accept the conditions? What will happen to Stephen's marriage? Will Jenny manage to change, or will she continue seeking revenge? The battle has just begun. No one moved for what felt like hours, but was only minutes. Jenny was still standing in the middle of the living room, the legal papers shaking in her hands. Stephen was sitting in the armchair, head bowed, breathing as if he had just run a marathon. Robert broke the silence. "I'll give you a moment to process. I'll be outside if you need me, Aunt." He squeezed my shoulder before leaving, closing the door softly behind him. Jenny was the first to speak. "You can't do this," she said, but her voice no longer had its former strength. It sounded hollow, defeated. "We're your family. Family doesn't plan to rob you. Family doesn't humiliate you on the internet. Family doesn't wait for you to die to take what's yours." I responded without raising my voice. "I never said I wanted you to die." She tried to defend herself. "How long does she have left? 10 years? 5? I quoted her own words from the audio. "Shall I refresh your memory?" Jenny closed her eyes. A tear rolled down her cheek, but I didn't know if it was genuine or calculated. Stephen stood up abruptly. "I need air," he said, and walked out to the backyard without looking at either of us. I watched him through the window. He sat on the cement bench, the same one where I had cried and planned all this. He covered his face with his hands. Jenny took a step toward the door. "Leave him," I told her. "For once in your life, let him process without you controlling the narrative." She stopped. She looked at me with something that could have been hatred or could have been fear. Probably both. "What do you want from me?" she finally asked. "To humiliate me? To destroy me? You already won. Isn't that enough?" "I don't want to humiliate you, Jenny. I want you to understand what you did. I want you to look into the eyes of those children who are playing in the backyard and ask yourself what kind of example you are setting for them. I did everything for them, for their future, to give them a good life. By teaching them that it's okay to steal, to lie, to use people. It's not stealing if it's an inheritance. It is stealing when you plan to take something based on the desire for the owner to die soon." Jenny opened her mouth to reply, but nothing came out, because there was no possible defense for that. She sank to the floor, leaning against the wall. Her hands still gripped the papers. "I don't know what to do," she said in a broken voice. "I don't know how to fix this." I sat in my armchair, facing her. I let the silence stretch. "Do you know what the saddest thing about all this is?" I said finally. "That I loved you, Jenny, I really did. When Stephen brought you home for the first time, I saw how you looked at him. I thought it was real love. I opened the doors of my home, of my life to you. I treated you like a daughter. And I loved you too," she whispered. "No, you wanted what I had. You wanted security. You wanted a free house. You wanted someone to watch your children while you lived your life. But you never loved me. She shook her head, but without conviction. When you made that video, I continued, you didn't just humiliate me. You made me invisible. You reduced me to a function, a salaried employee. And people laughed. Thousands of people who don't know me believed I was a burden, a dependent, a useless old woman. It was just a video, she started to say. It was my dignity. My voice rose for the first time. Do you know how many years I worked to build this house? How many sleepless nights? How many times I ate beans and tortillas to save money? How many times my hands bled literally and metaphorically? I stood up. I walked toward her. I built this with blood, Jenny, and you were going to take it as if it were nothing, as if I were worthless, as if my life didn't matter. She was sobbing now, her makeup running, her hair messy, so different from the confident influencer who uploaded videos. The backyard door opened. Stephen walked in. His eyes were red, but his expression was different, harder, more determined. Jenny, get up, he said in a firm voice. She looked at him from the floor. Honey? No. Get up. We need to talk. Outside. Jenny got up with difficulty. Stephen took her arm, not violently but firmly, and led her out to the patio, closing the door behind them. I stayed in the living room. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I saw their gestures through the window. Stephen was talking. Jenny tried to interrupt. He raised his hand, asking her to let him finish. She was crying. He remained firm. 20 minutes passed. When they returned, something had changed between them. It was noticeable in the space they left between their bodies, in how they avoided looking at each other. Stephen spoke first. Mum, we accept your conditions. All 5 of them, no negotiation. Jenny nodded silently, looking at the floor. But there is something else you need to know, Stephen continued. His voice trembled slightly. Jenny and I are separating. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. Stephen, no, I started. It's not because of you, Mum. It's because of us. Because of what this day just revealed. He looked me straight in the eyes. I thought I knew the woman I married. I thought we shared values. I thought we were a team. But today I discovered that she kept secrets, plans, that she saw me as a means to an end. Stephen, please, we can work on this, Jenny pleaded, grabbing his arm. I'll go to therapy. I'll change, whatever it takes. He gently pulled away, but with determination. I need time. I need to think. I need to understand who you really are. Because the woman in that audio, that's not the woman I thought I knew. And the children? Jenny asked in a desperate voice. The children are staying with me, here, with my mum. Stephen turned to me. If she accepts. If not, we'll find another place. But they won't be in an environment where these types of things are planned again. Son. I didn't know what to say. Mum, forgive me. Stephen knelt in front of me, my adult son, 33 years old, on his knees. Forgive me for being so blind, for not defending you, for letting you be treated like that in your own house, for laughing at that video, for doubting you when you showed me the truth. The tears I had been holding back finally came out. I just wanted to give you a happy home, I said, touching his head. A family. I thought I was doing the right thing by giving them space, by helping them, by making myself small so you could grow. You made yourself too small, Mum, so much that you almost disappeared. And I didn't see it. I didn't want to see it, because it was more comfortable for you to do everything, for you to sacrifice, for you to give up your bedroom, your privacy, your life. Stephen, get up. That's enough. No, I need to tell you this. He looked at me with tear-filled eyes. Dad died when I was 3 years old. I barely remember him. But you have always been here. You worked until exhaustion to give me a decent life. You paid for my school. You supported me in everything. And I repaid you with indifference, with minimizing your pain, with choosing the comfort of my marriage over your dignity. It's not like that, I tried to comfort him. Yes, it is. And it ends today. He stood up. Jenny will go to the storage unit to organize her things. She'll look for an apartment. The children and I are staying here. I'll pay the rent you asked for, even though I know it's ridiculously low. I'll help with the house. And I'll learn to be the son you deserved from the beginning. I looked at Jenny. I expected to see rage or resentment. I only saw defeat. When do you want me to leave? She asked in a monotonous voice. You can stay in the guest room tonight, I said. Tomorrow you can start looking for your own place. You have 1 month to move your things out of the storage unit and sort out your situation. The children can visit you whenever you want, but here, you no longer live here. She nodded. No fighting, no manipulation. Maybe because she finally understood that she had lost. Or maybe because she never cared enough to truly fight. There's something else, Stephen said. The video. Delete it. Now. Jenny took out her cell phone with trembling hands. She opened her TikTok. She found the video, now with over 200,000 likes, and deleted it. Now the apology, I said. Public, sincere, or there's no deal. Jenny looked at me. There was something in her eyes that I couldn't identify. Real remorse? Calculation? Resignation? I'll do it, she finally said. But not today. I need to process all this first. You have until noon tomorrow, I said without giving in. Or the deal is off. She nodded. Stephen went out to the patio to get the children. He brought them inside. Caroline and Sam looked at us confused, sensing the tension in the air, even if they didn't fully understand what was happening. Kids, Stephen said, kneeling down to their level. Mom is going to stay somewhere else for a while, but she'll see you often. You're staying here with Dad and Grandma. Okay. Why? Caroline asked with that intuition children have, who always know when something is wrong. Because sometimes adults need time to fix things, Stephen answered. But we love you very much, both of us. That will never change. Sam hugged my leg. Grandma is staying with us? Yes, honey. Grandma is staying. Good, he said, with that simplicity of 6-year-olds. I like being with Grandma. Those simple words broke and healed me at the same time. Jenny said goodbye to her children with long kisses and tight hugs. She cried. They hugged her back without fully understanding, but feeling her sadness. Then she went up to the guest room without saying anything else. Stephen prepared dinner. Something simple. Cheese quesadillas with beans. We ate in silence, the 4 of us sitting at my table with my tablecloths. After putting the children to bed, Stephen and I sat in the living room. Are you sure about this? I asked him. The separation. She's your family. She's my broken family, Mum. I can't keep pretending that everything is okay when the foundation of my marriage was a lie. The children? The children will be better off in an honest home, even if it's divided, than in one full of secrets and manipulation. He was right, but it hurt anyway. I love you, Mum, Stephen said, resting his head on my shoulder like when he was a child. And I'm going to prove it to you every day from now on. I know, son. I know. That night, I lay down in my bed, which I had retrieved from the small room and put back in my master bedroom, and looked at the ceiling. I had won my house back, but I had lost the illusion of the perfect family. Was it worth it? I looked around. My room, my space, my restored dignity. Yes, it was worth every tear. Will Jenny follow through with the public apology? What will happen when the world finds out the truth? Justice is not over yet. The next morning I went downstairs at 6 o'clock as always. I brewed coffee, took out sweet rolls that I had bought the day before. The house smelled different, lighter, as if the smoke from a fire that had been burning for years had cleared out. Stephen came down at 7. He had dark circles under his eyes, but he looked calmer. "Good morning, Mum." "Good morning, son. Did you sleep?" "Not much, but well." He poured himself coffee. "And you?" "Better than in months." Jenny didn't come down until 9. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, no makeup, wearing the same clothes from the day before. She looked small, vulnerable. "Good morning," she said in a dull voice. No one replied. She poured herself coffee in silence. She sat at the table, away from us. At 11 o'clock in the morning, she was still there, looking at her cell phone. "It's almost noon," I reminded her. She looked up. Her eyes were swollen from crying. "I know. Are you going to keep your part of the deal?" There was a long moment where I thought she would say no, that she would get up and leave without another word, that she would lose even the possibility of seeing her children regularly. But then she nodded. "I need to record something. Can I use the patio?" "Go ahead." Jenny went out to the garden with her cell phone and a small tripod she took out of her bag. I watched her through the window arranging the camera, testing angles, fixing her hair. Even at her worst, she was still vain. But then she started recording. And what she said surprised me. I couldn't hear her from inside, but I saw her face, the tears running, how she wiped her eyes, how she gestured with her hands, how her voice broke. She recorded, stopped, recorded again. She did it 4 times. When she finally came in, she showed me her cell phone. "Before I upload it, I want you to see it, so you know I kept my promise." I pressed play. Jenny appeared on the screen. No filters, no makeup. Just her, with red eyes and a trembling voice. "Hello, everyone. I know many of you saw a video I posted 2 weeks ago. One where I mocked my mother-in-law, where I called her useless, where I said it was her obligation to take care of my house and my children." She paused. She took a deep breath. That video was cruel. It was unfair. And it was a lie. My mother-in-law is not useless. She is the hardest working woman I know. She built the house where we live with her own hands. She paid for every brick by working double shifts after being widowed with a small child. She raised my husband alone. And when we got married, she opened the doors of her home to us, without asking for anything in return. The tears flowed freely now. And I repaid her with mockery, with public humiliation, with disrespect. Not just in that video, but in my daily life. I treated her as if she were my employee, as if she owed me something, when the truth is that I owe her everything. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. She never had the obligation to help us. Every meal she prepared, every child she cared for, every space she gave up, was a gift that I took as if it were my right. And it wasn't. I'm making this video because I owe her a public apology. To her and to all mothers, mothers-in-law, grandmothers, who are treated as if they were invisible, as if their work was worthless, as if their sacrifice didn't matter. Her voice broke. "I'm sorry. I really am. And I understand if you never forgive me." but I needed you to know, and for everyone to know, that I was wrong, completely wrong. And to all the people who applauded that video, who laughed, who commented horrible things about her, please think twice before mocking someone you don't know. Behind that mother-in-law is a story of strength, sacrifice, and love that I failed to appreciate. The video ended. I stared at the blank screen. "Is it enough?" Jenny asked in a small voice. It wasn't perfect. There were parts that sounded rehearsed, but there was something genuine in her breakdown, in her tears. "Upload it," I finally said. She nodded. Her fingers trembled as she pressed the buttons. She added a text. The apology I should have given from the beginning. Publish. The video was there, on her profile, visible to her 230,000 followers. "Done," she said. "It's up." Stephen, who had been watching from the doorway, nodded. "Now pack your things. I'll help you look for an apartment this afternoon." Jenny went upstairs without saying anything else. An hour later, my cell phone started vibrating. It was Mary, my cousin. "Did you see? Did you see?" "What?" "Your daughter-in-law's video. It's exploding. Eleanor. It's everywhere." I opened TikTok on my phone. Jenny's video already had 50,000 views. And climbing. The comments multiplied by the second. Wow. At least she had the guts to apologize. This is not seen every day. Respect. I wish my daughter-in-law had this humility. Plot twist. The mother-in-law turned out to be the hero. But there were others too. The video is nice, but the damage is already done. She's only apologizing because she got caught. These influencers and their fake dramas for views. The video reached 100,000 views in 2 hours. And then Mary called again. "Cousin, do you give me permission to tell your side of the story? People are asking. They want to know what really happened. Your story needs to be told." I hesitated. I didn't want to be the center of attention. I didn't want to expose my life any further. But then I thought of all the older women who are treated as invisible, as burdens, as obligations. "Do it," I said. "But respectfully, without attacking anyone, just tell the truth." Mary worked fast. That same afternoon, she uploaded a video. She appeared in her kitchen, with her colorful apron and her warm voice that had made her famous. "Hello, family. Today, I'm going to tell you a true story. About a woman I've known since I was a child, my cousin Eleanor. And she told everything. Not with intimate details, not with full names. But she told the essence. A widow who built a house alone, who raised her son with love and sacrifice, who opened her home to her daughter-in-law, who was publicly humiliated, who discovered a plan to steal her assets, and who finally defended herself with dignity and justice. This is a story about dignity, Mary said, looking directly at the camera. About knowing your worth. About not letting anyone, not even your own family, treat you as if you were disposable. Mary's video exploded even more than Jenny's. 1 million views in 6 hours. The comments were an unstoppable river. I cried. This is my mum's story. My grandma went through the same thing. Thank you for giving her a voice. All mothers-in-law deserve respect. They are mothers too. We need more stories like this, of women who don't give up. But what I didn't expect was what happened next. Other content creators started reacting to the video. YouTubers, TikTokers, Instagrammers. Everyone telling their own stories of mistreated grandmothers and mothers, of families taking advantage, of older women reclaiming their power. Respect your mother. In-law became a trend. Dignity over lol trending topic. My story, without me seeking it, had become a movement. 3 days later, a reporter from a morning news program called the house. Mrs. Smith, we would like to interview you. Your story is inspiring thousands of people. I don't know. I hesitated. You don't have to show your face if you don't want to. It can be from the back, with a distorted voice, whatever you prefer. But your message is changing conversations across the country. I thought about it for hours. I finally accepted. The interview was filmed in my living room. I sat in my blue armchair, my back to the camera, with my voice unaltered, because I decided I had nothing to be ashamed of. The reporter asked me everything. How was it to build the house alone? How did I feel about the video? What led me to make the decision to take their things out? What did I want to tell other women in my situation? I want to tell them that they are not alone, I said, looking toward the window where the sunlight entered. That their value is not in what they do for others, but in who they are. That being kind does not mean being invisible, and that it is never, ever too late to recover your dignity. The interview aired the following Monday. It had 3 million views in the first week. My cell phone didn't stop receiving messages. From distant cousins, from neighbors, from school friends I hadn't seen in 40 years. But the message that impacted me the most was from a woman I didn't know. Mrs. Smith, my name is Patricia. I am 72 years old. I have been living with my son and daughter-in-law for 8 years. They treat me as you describe. Invisible. Useful only for cleaning and childcare. I saw your story and cried all night. But this morning I spoke with a lawyer. I am going to get my house back. I am going to get my life back. Thank you for teaching me that there is still time. Thank you for showing me that grandmothers also have the right to be happy. I saved that message like a treasure, because I realized that all the pain, all the humiliation, all the difficult process had been worth it not only for me. It had been worth it for all the Patricias in the world, for all the women who once believed that their sacrifice made them invisible, for all those who thought it was too late to defend themselves. Meanwhile, Jenny had found a small apartment in the northern part of town. She moved out with the basics. The children visited her on weekends. Stephen and she started couples therapy, although neither of them knew if the marriage would survive. But that was no longer my battle. I had fought mine, and I had won it. What will happen with the family now? Will there be reconciliation, or is this the end? The final chapter is about to begin. 2 months later, the house had found a new rhythm, a more honest, more balanced one. Stephen got up early and prepared breakfast 3 times a week. The other days I did it, but because I wanted to, not because it was my obligation. On weekends we cooked together while the children set the table. We had made a schedule on a whiteboard hanging in the kitchen. Monday, Stephen cleans bathrooms, I cook. Tuesday, I clean the living room, he cooks. Wednesday, we both cook, the children help clean their room, and so on. The house was no longer a place where one person carried everything. It was a home where everyone contributed. On the first day of every month, Stephen handed me an envelope with $350. I saved it in a savings account I had opened specifically for that money. "Mom, it's too little," he had told me the first time. "Let me give you more." "No, this is symbolic. It's so you remember that living here is a privilege, not a right. And that privilege comes with responsibility and respect." He had nodded, finally understanding the lesson. The children flourished in this new environment. Caroline had become more communicative. Sam, more confident. I taught them to make cookies on Saturdays, to plant herbs in the garden, to appreciate what they had. "Grandma," Caroline had asked me one afternoon while we were kneading cookie dough, "why doesn't Mom live here anymore?" It was the question I had been waiting for. I sat down at her level, my hands still covered in dough. Sometimes adults make mistakes, honey, and when those mistakes are big, they need time to fix them. Your mum made mistakes with me and with this family, and now she is working on being better. But will she come back? I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. But what I do know is that you and your brother will always be loved. By your mum, by your dad, and by me. Do you love us more now that mum is gone? She asked with that brutal innocence of children. No, my darling. I loved you exactly the same before. The difference is that now I have space to show it without being exhausted all the time. She nodded as if that made perfect sense. Maybe for children it did. Jenny still came on Sundays. She took the children to the park, to the movies, out to eat. She brought them back before 6 o'clock in the afternoon. At first, our encounters were tense. She would arrive, pick up the children, and leave. She wouldn't even look me in the eyes. But with time, something changed. One Sunday, after 3 months of this arrangement, Jenny knocked on the door instead of honking the car horn. I opened it. "Mrs. Smith," she said. Her voice was different, softer, without that arrogance she used to carry. "Can we talk? Just a few minutes. The children can wait in the car." I let her in. We sat in the living room. I was on my blue armchair. She was on a wooden chair I had pulled from the dining room. "I want to thank you," she began, and raised her hand when she saw I was about to interrupt. "Please let me finish." I nodded. "I want to thank you for not letting me get away with it, for not allowing me to continue being that horrible person I was, for setting boundaries with me when no one else did." Her hands trembled slightly. "I've been in individual therapy, twice a week, and I realized a lot of things. How I always looked for shortcuts, how I always wanted things easy, how I used people without even realizing I was doing it." "Jenny," I began. "Please let me finish," she repeated. I closed my mouth. "You didn't deserve any of what I did to you. None of it. And the worst part is that for a long time, I didn't see it. I didn't see my cruelty. I didn't see my manipulation. I had convinced myself that I was smart, strategic, practical, when the truth is that I was selfish and cruel." A tear rolled down her cheek. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect us to be a family again. But I needed you to know that what you did, it changed my life. It forced me to look at myself in a mirror, and I didn't like what I saw. And now I'm trying to be someone different, someone my children can be proud of." She stood up. "That's all. I just wanted to tell you that." "Jenny, wait," I said before she reached the door. She stopped. "Sit down, please." She returned to the chair cautiously. "I wasn't perfect either," I said, and I saw her surprise. "I made myself too small. I gave up too much. I let my boundaries blur until they disappeared. And that wasn't right either." "But you were just being generous." "No, I was being cowardly. I was afraid that if I set boundaries, my son would leave me. That if I said no, they would stop loving me. So I said yes to everything until there was nothing left of me." I took a deep breath. "You took advantage of that." "Yes, but I allowed it. And that's my part of the responsibility. That doesn't justify— No, it doesn't justify anything. But it does explain how we got here. And if we're going to heal, not necessarily as a family as before, but as people who share grandchildren, then we need to be honest about everything." Jenny wiped her eyes. "Do you think you can ever forgive me?" I thought about it. I really did. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "Forgiveness is complicated. It's not a switch you flip. It's a process. But what I can tell you is that I don't hold a grudge against you. I am at peace with what happened because it gave me back something I had lost. My dignity. I understand. And one more thing, I added. I've seen how you've been with the children these past few months. More present, more attentive. That speaks well of you. It means you're really trying to change. She nodded, unable to speak. Keep it up, for them, and for you. Jenny stood up, approached, and to my surprise, hugged me. A brief but genuine hug. Thank you, she whispered, for everything, even the difficult things. When she left with the children, I stayed in the living room thinking, had I really forgiven her, or had I just let go of the anger? Maybe it was a bit of both. Maybe forgiveness wasn't forgetting or pretending nothing happened. Maybe it was simply deciding that the pain no longer controlled my life. The evening was falling softly over the garden. I poured myself a cup of coffee and went out to the patio. I sat on my cement bench under the lemon tree that I had planted 37 years ago. The branches were full of yellow, plump, perfect lemons. I thought about everything that had happened. The video, the humiliation, the discovery of the plan, the moving out, the confrontation, the separation, the story going viral. And I realized something. I hadn't just won my house. I had won my voice. For decades, I had remained silent. I had accepted. I had yielded. I had believed that loving meant disappearing, but now I knew differently. Loving meant having healthy boundaries. Loving meant respecting yourself as much as you respect others. Loving meant knowing when to fight and when to let go. My cell phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. Mrs. Smith, my name is Ellen. I saw your interview 2 months ago. Today I signed the deeds to my house in my name. My son can no longer threaten to kick me out of the house that I bought. Thank you for teaching me that it is never too late to take back what is yours. God bless you. I saved that message like a treasure because I realized that all the pain, all the humiliation, all the difficult process had been worth it not only for me. It had been worth it for all the Ellens and Patricias of the world, for all the women who once believed that their sacrifice made them invisible, for all those who thought it was too late to defend themselves. Meanwhile, Jenny had found a small apartment in the North End. She moved out with the basics. The children visited her on weekends. Stephen and she started couples therapy, although neither of them knew if the marriage would survive. But that was no longer my battle. I had fought mine, and I had won it. What will happen with the family now? Will there be reconciliation, or is this the end? The last chapter is about to begin. 2 months later. The house had found a new rhythm, a more honest, more balanced one. Stephen got up early and prepared breakfast 3 times a week. The other days I did it, but because I wanted to, not because it was my obligation. On weekends, we cooked together while the children set the table. We had made a schedule on a whiteboard hanging in the kitchen. Monday, Stephen cleans bathrooms, I cook. Tuesday, I clean the living room, he cooks. Wednesday, we both cook, the children help clean their room, and so on. The house was no longer a place where one person carried everything. It was a home where everyone contributed. On the 5th of every month, Stephen handed me an envelope with $350. I saved it in a savings account I had opened specifically for that money. Mum, it's too little, he had told me the first time. Let me give you more. No, this is symbolic. It's so you remember that living here is a privilege, not a right, and that privilege comes with responsibility and respect. He had nodded, finally understanding the lesson. The children flourished in this new environment. Caroline had become more communicative. Sam, more confident. I taught them to make apple pie on Saturdays, to plant herbs in the garden, to appreciate what they had. Grandma, Caroline had asked me one afternoon while we were kneading dough for biscuits, why doesn't Mum live here anymore? It was the question I had been waiting for. I sat down at her level, my hands still covered in dough. Sometimes adults make mistakes, honey. And when those mistakes are big, they need time to fix them. Your mum made mistakes with me and with this family, and now she is working on being better. But will she come back? I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. But what I do know is that you and your brother will always be loved. By your mum, by your dad, and by me. Do you love us more now that Mum is gone? She asked with that brutal innocence of children. No, my darling. I loved you exactly the same before. The difference is that now I have space to show it without being exhausted all the time. She nodded as if that made perfect sense. Maybe for children, it did. Jenny still came on Sundays. She took the children to the park, to the movies, out to eat. She brought them back before 6 o'clock in the afternoon. At first, our encounters were tense. She would arrive, pick up the children, and leave. She wouldn't even look me in the eyes. But with time, something changed. One Sunday, after 3 months of this arrangement, Jenny knocked on the door instead of honking the car horn. I opened it. "Mrs. Smith," she said. Her voice was different, softer, without that arrogance she used to carry. "Can we talk? Just a few minutes. The children can wait in the car." I let her in. We sat in the living room. I was on my blue armchair. She was on a wooden chair I had pulled from the dining room. "I want to thank you," she began, and raised her hand when she saw I was about to interrupt. "Please let me finish." I nodded. "I want to thank you for not letting me get away with it, for not allowing me to continue being that horrible person I was, for setting boundaries with me when no one else did." Her hands trembled slightly. "I've been in individual therapy, twice a week, and I realized a lot of things. How I always looked for shortcuts, how I always wanted things easy, how I used people without even realizing I was doing it." "Jenny," I began. "Please let me finish," she repeated. I closed my mouth. "You didn't deserve any of what I did to you. None of it. And the worst part is that for a long time I didn't see it. I didn't see my cruelty. I didn't see my manipulation. I had convinced myself that I was smart, strategic, practical, when the truth is that I was selfish and cruel." A tear rolled down her cheek. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect us to be a family again. But I needed you to know that what you did, it changed my life. It forced me to look at myself in a mirror, and I didn't like what I saw. And now I'm trying to be someone different, someone my children can be proud of." She stood up. "That's all. I just wanted to tell you that." "Jenny, wait," I said, before she reached the door. She stopped. "Sit down, please." She returned to the chair cautiously. "I wasn't perfect either," I said, and I saw her surprise. "I made myself too small. I gave up too much. I let my boundaries blur until they disappeared. And that wasn't right either." "But you were just being generous." "No, I was being cowardly. I was afraid that if I set boundaries, my son would leave me. That if I said no, they would stop loving me. So I said yes to everything until there was nothing left of me." I took a deep breath. "You took advantage of that." "Yes, but I allowed it. And that's my part of the responsibility. That doesn't justify, no, it doesn't justify anything, but it does explain how we got here. And if we're going to heal, not necessarily as a family as before, but as people who share grandchildren, then we need to be honest about everything. Jenny wiped her eyes. Do you think you can ever forgive me? I thought about it. I really did. I don't know, I answered honestly. Forgiveness is complicated. It's not a switch you flip. It's a process. But what I can tell you is that I don't hold a grudge against you. I am at peace with what happened because it gave me back something I had lost. My dignity. I understand. And one thing more, I added. I've seen how you've been with the children these past few months. More present, more attentive. That speaks well of you. It means you're really trying to change. She nodded, unable to speak. Keep it up, for them, and for you. Jenny stood up, approached, and to my surprise, hugged me. A brief but genuine hug. Thank you, she whispered, for everything, even the difficult things. When she left with the children, I stayed in the living room thinking, had I really forgiven her, or had I just let go of the anger? Maybe it was a bit of both. Maybe forgiveness wasn't forgetting or pretending nothing happened. Maybe it was simply deciding that the pain no longer controlled my life. The evening was falling softly over the garden. I poured myself a cup of coffee and went out to the patio. I sat on my cement bench under the lemon tree that I had planted 37 years ago. The branches were full of yellow, plump, perfect lemons. I thought about everything that had happened. The video, the humiliation, the discovery of the plan, the moving out, the confrontation, the separation, the story going viral. And I realized something. I hadn't just won my house. I had won my voice. For decades, I had remained silent. I had accepted. I had yielded. I had believed that loving meant disappearing, but now I knew differently. Loving meant having healthy boundaries. Loving meant respecting yourself as much as you respect others. Loving meant knowing when to fight and when to let go. My cell phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. Mrs. Smith, my name is Ellen. I saw your interview 2 months ago. Today I signed the deeds to my house in my name. My son can no longer threaten to kick me out of the house that I bought. Thank you for teaching me that it is never too late to take back what is yours. God bless you. I saved that message with the other hundreds I had received in these months. Stories of Patricias and Ellens, of Roses and Marys, of women who had found strength in my story to write their own. That was my true inheritance. Not the house worth $300,000, but the certainty that my life had served for something bigger than myself. Stephen came out to the patio. Mum, are you okay? Yes, son. I'm more than okay. He sat down beside me on the bench. Do you know what day it is today? He asked. I thought. It wasn't anyone's birthday. It wasn't an anniversary. No. What day is it? It's exactly 3 months since everything changed. Since you took back your house. What? Since I got my mother back. He took my hand. These have been the 3 hardest months of my life. The divorce, the therapy, realizing who my wife really was. But they have also been the best. Because I got to see you again, the real you, not the one who made herself small, but the warrior you always were, but that I failed to see. Stephen, let me finish, he smiled. You sound like Jenny when you do that. We laughed. I want you to know that I am proud of you, not just of what you did, but of how you did it, with dignity, without unnecessarily destroying, even giving Jenny a chance at redemption. Everyone deserves second chances, I said. Yes, but not everyone takes them. I think Jenny is trying. I don't know if our marriage will survive. Honestly, I don't think it will. But at least now we are honest. And that's better than the comfortable lie we were living in. We sat in silence, watching the sun set behind the trees. Mum, I have something for you, Stephen said, pulling an envelope from his pocket. What is this? Open it. Inside was a legal document. I read it carefully. It was a formal waiver from Stephen of any claim to the house. A document where he declared that he recognized that the house was mine, and mine alone, and that he would not seek to inherit it or claim it under any circumstance while I lived. Stephen, you don't have to. Yes, I do. I need you to know that I'm staying here because you allow me to, not because I have a right, and that if you ever decide you want your complete space, I will respect it without question. The tears threatened to fall, but I held them back. You are my son. This house will always be your home. But thank you for understanding. Thank you for teaching me what it really means to be a man. It's not about protecting your comfort. It's about protecting the people you love, even when that means confronting difficult truths. That night, after putting the children to bed, I sat in my bedroom, the master bedroom, my bedroom, with my bed, my vanity, my view of the garden. I took out my old notebook where I had written so many things over the years, and I wrote. Today I understood that true wealth is not in what you possess, but in what you do not allow to be taken from you. Do not allow them to take your voice, your dignity, your right to occupy space in your own life. Because once you reclaim those things, no house, no money, no comfort compares to the peace of knowing you are whole. I closed the notebook, turned off the light, and slept deeply, without nightmares, without worries, without fear. Because finally, after 68 years, I had learned the most important lesson. You are not old, you are not useless, you are not invisible. You are a woman who built empires with her hands, who loved with all her heart, who fell but got back up, who was humiliated but not destroyed, and who in the end proved that grandmothers are not made of glass. We are made of steel. If this story reached your heart, I want you to know something. You are not alone. Whether you are going through something similar, whether you know someone who is living it, or simply because these words touched you, I want you to remember this. It is never too late to reclaim your dignity. It is never too late to set boundaries. It is never too late to remind yourself and others who you really are, no matter your age, no matter how long you've been yielding, no matter how many times they've made you feel invisible. You are still you, whole, valuable, powerful. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching this story from? Did you identify with anything Eleanor experienced? I'd love to read your story too. And if this story moved something inside you, give me a like and subscribe to the channel. Here we share real stories of real women who refuse to be invisible. Because our stories matter, our voices matter, and above all, we matter. Until the next story, everyone. And remember, grandmothers don't give up. Grandmothers reconquer.